Hey, this is Tapsteady. Welcome to the channel. This is my playthrough of Final Fantasy 1, the Pixel Remaster, and also the first video in the very long series of playing every Final Fantasy game in order. I've been a long-time Final Fantasy fan, almost my entire life, and I've always wanted to play all the games in order. So this is the time to do it. Like, the year that these Pixel Remasters come out, it's great. Like, these games look great, and I'm really looking forward to playing 1 through 6 again. Just a little history, like I first got into the series with this game. I remember buying it in a garage sale on NES when I was 7 years old, and I thought it was all right. It was cool, but I didn't really become obsessed with the series until I played 7, obviously. No, I'm kidding. There are like 6. There are really good games before 7, but I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up, so I did miss out on a lot of those, and then later played them in high school. But I remember when I was, I believe 11, I got 7 and 8 on my birthday, and yeah, I was obsessed with 7. And not so much with 8. I did not like 8. I thought the summons were super badass, but I just could not get invested in that game at the time. I'm hoping with this series, like, I'm open to liking that game. I'm gonna give it a fair, honest shot. It's been a very long time. Figure out my age if I say this, but it's been 23 years since I've played that game. I think it deserves another shot, and I want to appreciate it, like I do all games in this series, including Final Fantasy 13, one of the most hated in the series. I mean, we say that, but they came out with 13.2 and 13.3, so it couldn't have been that hard of a flop. I think 13 had a lot of good things going for it. You know, not the story or the characters. The characters are super annoying, with the exception of Saz. But yeah, I love a lot of things in this series. If you're new to the Final Fantasy series, you don't have to play these games in order. If you're unfamiliar, like, all of these games exist in the same universe, but they're their own self-contained stories. So you could jump in at 7, and you won't be missing out on anything. A little history for me on each game. Like I said, I played Final Fantasy 1 on NES, but I didn't beat it there. I then played it. I bought Final Fantasy Origins. I played it there. I didn't beat it there. I bought Dawn of Souls on Game Boy Advance. I played it and didn't beat it there. Like, there's a theme here. I keep buying games and not beating them. I then bought it on my phone, and that's where I beat Final Fantasy 1. Back in 2010, I worked at a print shop, and between jobs, like, sometimes we have to laminate the jobs, and there are some days where you're laminating for an hour or 2 hours, and it only required one hand. So on the other hand, I'd play Final Fantasy on my phone, and it was awesome. I got paid to beat Final Fantasy 1. And then I bought this Pixel Remaster again. So that's 5 copies of this game. I'm not going to tally every copy of every Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy 2, I did not own, but I emulated when I was in high school. Final Fantasy 3, I'd beaten on the DS, the 3D remake. Final Fantasy 4, I also played on the DS, but I did not beat 4. Yeah, I don't know if I said that, but I have not beaten every game in the series. I have not beaten 2, 4, 5, or 8. And I'm really looking forward to going back to those games and beating them and giving them the time. And honestly, just the attention, like, there's so many things playing some of these games later on as an adult that I just missed out on, even in high school, or I was just skipping through dialogue like, yeah, I'm in a rush, let's go. Which is not the way to appreciate these games. Although, to each his own. Like, some games are really fun without the story too. So, play you know? From there, Final Fantasy 5, I had Anthology. I have not beaten 5. Final Fantasy 6, even though I had on the Anthology, I beat that one emulated. I love Final Fantasy 6. Final Fantasy 7, I beat on PlayStation. I beat the port on PC. Did I beat the port on PC? I've beaten 7 many times. Actually, I don't think I beat it on PC, but I also have it on Switch. Final Fantasy 8, I recently picked up the Remastered, so that's probably the version I'll be playing when I get to that. Final Fantasy 9, I have only played and beaten once, and I'm really looking forward to playing that game again, because it's been, oh my god, how long has it been? It's been 21 years since I've played and beat that game, and I really, really want to go back to it. I remember it was one of the first games I had a strategy guide for, and I remember just sitting in my living room with that strategy guide like opened over my lap and playing it non-stop. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. Final Fantasy 9 has one of the best soundtracks in the series. Yeah. Final Fantasy 10, I have multiple copies. I've beaten that game many times. 7 and 10 I've beaten the most. Looking forward to that one. I beat that one on PS2. I've beaten that one on PC. I also have it on Switch. Final Fantasy 11. I still play Final Fantasy 11 to this day. If you're unfamiliar, it is the first Final Fantasy MMO, and it first came out in 2002 in Japan, 2003 here in the US. I started playing in 2004. I was in high school at the time, and I was pretty against it when it first came out because I was broke. I mean, I had a minimum wage job, and it was $13 a month, still is. And the game itself, like I didn't have a PC that could run it, so I had to play on PS2. And the game itself, with the hard drive it came with was $100. And you also had to buy the network adapter, which was another $40. So it was a $140 entry to play Final Fantasy 11 on top of the $13 monthly sub, which is a lot for a high schooler and a part-time minimum wage job saving up for a car. Oh my god. Yeah, so yeah, I still play that game to this day. I'm currently playing on the private server Eden, which is a Treasures of Ottergon level 75 era cap. And yeah, if you're on that server too, hit me up. My character names are Stardew and Valley. I got very lucky with those two names. On retail, I'm inactive at the moment, but man, I could go on and on about 11, so I'm not going to. I'll tell you the servers I'm on, but like, join the Discord, talk to me about 11, comment if you played 11 or still play 11, because it's a pretty tight community. It was also my first MMO. I think it's one of the best MMO communities out there. But I started on the Kujatsu server, which got merged into Valifor. But then I started my main, which I still play today, in 2008 on Ifrit, which got merged into Odin. So yeah, hit me up, let me know. People who don't play the MMOs are like, move on, please. Final Fantasy 12, I played on PS2. I beat it there, and then I also bought and beat Zodiac Age on PS4. And I'll likely play Zodiac Age for these playthroughs. Oh yeah, speaking of other games, like, obviously, Final Fantasy VII Remake, I would love to play as a part of the series, but I have to play the original. It's the only way to experience the full story, and they're very different games. I love both. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've already beat it twice, and I have not played Intergrade yet, so I need to beat it a third time. I'm very happy both games exist. They're awesome. Final Fantasy 13 I played and beat on Xbox 360. Final Fantasy 14 I started playing when 2.0 Realm Reborn came out, because when 1.0 came out I was still hooked on Final Fantasy 11. Was like, I'm not getting into that, no, I'm good. But I am currently on the Behemoth server, which is Primal Data Center, and I have not picked up Endwalker yet, but I'll get into it. Final Fantasy 15 I played on PS4 when it first came out, so I did not play the Royal Edition or like any of the revamp of the later chapters or even the DLC. So I'm looking forward to like going through all of that again too. Other Final Fantasy games that are not part of the main series that I still want to play, that I'll eventually get to, are going to be 10-2. I've played 10-2 twice, but I haven't beaten it. I'm going to commit to it this time. Final Fantasy 13-2 I've never played, but I own 2 copies of. And Final Fantasy 13 I own and haven't played. I love Final Fantasy Tactics. I love Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2. Has it been 14 years since we've gotten a Final Fantasy Tactics game? I'm ready for a new one. Those games are awesome. Yeah, I'm not going to do the number fighting game here of which Final Fantasy is the best, 7, but feel free to jump in the comments. Tell me your favorite Final Fantasy game, which one you don't like. If you disagree with me, let me know, put me in my place there, or on the Discord, which I'll put in the description below. But I'm gonna get right into this. Another thing is this video has my face and this camera, but for the series, mostly, I'm not gonna play with the camera because I don't want my face taking up 1/8 of the screen. It'll be bad enough if I'm talking too much. So if you prefer this format with the video, let me know, and I'm willing to change. This is gonna be a very long series, so I'm not committing to a single format. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's me in Final Fantasy. I'm gonna get into this. That's the other thing, like, because I played these games so long ago, why am I getting back into this? I'm gonna forget a lot of stuff too, so even in this game, it's been 11 years. You think I remember a game like super well 11 years ago? That's not gonna happen. But yeah, I'm gonna get right into it. Thanks for staying chill until the end of the video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of this, and we're just gonna get right into it. All right, let's do it.